Okay, so thank you. Yeah, thank you for having us today. The session is about why admin knowledge matters for the CTA. And together with Johan, we're passing our CTA review board this year. I had quite strongly developer background. I'm going to cover it later. Luckily for me, Johan has strongly admin background. And at least for me, at the beginning, I asked my company to confirm budget for my studying, for my Flow Republic training program, for the exam itself, because it was like, technical architect. And I was very surprised when I understood how many non-technical in my world topics I have to learn about. Because if you take a look on the study guide, it sounds very technical, but under the hood, this admin, how Johan call it, for me, it's still upbuild their knowledge is super important, and we would like today help you a little bit to understand why it matters and how to prepare for this declarative piece of art, which we have to cover. And together with me is, go back, Johan, I have to speak about you. Yeah, it's my mate Johan from Berlin. He has a strong admin and declarative background, and luckily I had the pleasure to study for my review board together with him from the beginning, where we met, I think, in beginning of March. Would you like to add something, Johan?
I want to say the same from the other side. Since my background was admin, I was very lucky to be studying with Jakob as a developer, and I think we only passed because we brought our both knowledge together. So I wouldn't have passed without him, and I hope he wouldn't have passed.
Vice versa, yeah.
So this, and I didn't know that beforehand. I was very happy that my admin knowledge was not lost on the CTA. In contrary, this was very helpful, and this helps me till today. So go ahead, yeah.
Awesome. So guys, what we are going to cover today? First of all, it's a good to have this developer background, which I'm assuming most of people on the call already have. So I'm going to cover what are benefits of your current experience and which parts of the CTA program are going to generally be easier for you. And then we are going to take a look on the exam itself. So we will have short brainstorming about when click versus code decision really matter. And then we are going through 3 examples how in one of the mock exams which you can find online, how the decision shall we go with click or code can be done, and what is the CTA candidate justification, which probably can be expected that you will be able to make it on your own. And at the end, we are going to give you some advices for your journey to CTA. Next, please. Okay. So first of all, there are many misconceptions related to the review board itself. First of them is generally this developer background and generally technical background. As I mentioned, this technical architect in many other words will be known as enterprise architect. So the master degree in IT definitely it's not something necessary. To be honest, I finished master studies in computer science and I found them helpful because always when you are starting to prepare for something, your current knowledge can be your asset, and based on this, you can find your gaps. So I found many places when it was useful, but definitely it's not something mandatory. And if you are coming from our business side or declarative side, it's not the issue. Many people think that generally in enterprise, everything is done with code. And my feeling is that it's not always correct. With enterprise, usually you have situation when you already have, let's say, DevOps process, CI/CD, you have some code reviews, some pull requests, so generally have this whole governance framework related to using Apex code, which make using Apex easier comparing to having like small org without all this good practice on board. But still, the declarative part is a big piece of your daily job, and you cannot just make assumption that you are going to hire Java developers and let them work on a production org. I've seen projects like that, and it's never going good. And another misconception is that only amazing programmers can become CTAs. Definitely, it's not correct. And amazing programmer in terms of Salesforce doesn't mean that you have to be able to pass platform developer 1 or 2. Generally, Salesforce certificates, both Platform 1 and Platform 2, are related to knowledge about Salesforce tools and terms related to Apex, Lightning components, and so on development. But to become an amazing programmer, you probably have additionally know a little bit about object-oriented development, about test-driven development, about inheritance, and so on and so on. So literally, you don't have to be an amazing programmer, but from the other hand, you should be familiar with all tools which, as an architect, you can use in your project. So in this case, Platform Developer 1 is one of the prerequisites. And I would say that Platform Developer 2, in my opinion, it's good to pass as well, because many things like, for example, continuation engine, which are covered in Platform Developer 2 certificate, it's something what you should be able to put in a solution when you have a good use case for it. And the last misconception, which cost me a few hundreds of my life, I thought that if I'm a developer, I don't need admin stuff, because especially, when I'm doing my freelancing project or something like that, always you can edit in Apex, right? But not if you want to be a CTA. In this case, you have to make a step back, have bigger look, and prepare for being able to do lots of things in a declarative way. So definitely, if it's your gap and you are doing only programming stuff, it will be one of the areas which you have to spend a lot of time and become a master of this amazing admin stuff. Luckily, there are some benefits of being a developer. We had some discussion with Johan about this slide when we were working on the presentation. And what I see personally as the biggest advantage is that as developers, usually we have experience with thinking about complex flows, about complex algorithms. And if you are able to design a scalable, high-quality code with complex logic inside, then solving business requirements and then generally thinking about flows of data or user flows in the solution is going to be much easier for you. Another topic is generally development, deployment, and branching strategies. Always as part of your review board, you have one section about governance. And if you are working as developer, you are making pull requests, you are working on feature branches and so on, you do not have to worry about this part. Literally, I didn't spend more than 10 hours on going through Salesforce documentation because it's part of my daily job. So it was not something what I have to study at all because you already know it. And the same is related to the software development lifecycle. Probably you have some kind of the governance structure for release management, for checking quality of the code. Maybe you already use some static code analysis tool and so on. So there are many things of the CTA governance section, which probably you are already familiar with. The whole integrations are generally much easier when you are doing development, especially in terms of callouts or REST APIs and SOAP API, because you can solve them declaratively, but to learn and in a good way understand all the patterns related to these integrations, the real experience is definitely very helpful. You can expect that sometimes during your review board, you will have some requirements related to, for example, code development or refactoring, or, for example, problems with having outsourced developers in a project. So generally, many unexpected stuff, which if you had some experience with, you can just explain how you solve in your real life. But the last point, and I found it very important, is that learning this amazing admin stuff or the creative developer stuff is definitely much easier because you can just go to documentation, go to the Salesforce, and try lots of things what admin should bring with his background on your own. But learning theoretically all this developer-related stuff, all problems with governor limits, with these integrations, with problems with authentication, and so on, as Johan did, you can just theoretically study them and you can pass, but I had the feeling that it was much more challenging for him. And especially during the Q&A session, if somebody is starting grilling you on, for example, how do you plan to make the code reviews and branching and deployment and so on, you can always find situation when just this theoretical knowledge won't be able to cover 100% of questions, because you can just study in documentation what is in the documentation, but some edge cases cannot be so easily covered just by theoretical studying. So fact that you are already a developer and you have this developer background definitely will make part of the CTA review board much easier for you. Next slide, please.
And this brings me now, thanks Jakob. I agree with everything Jakob just said. So I had to do this learning the development theoretically, but also practically. So I created code, I wrote concepts, I wrote stuff, but as Jakob said, it's a lot of work, especially I have a background in business. This thinking in complex algorithm, thinking in complex flow is something which I struggled for a long time. But now I have good news, at least for an admin, or bad news for a developer. I took one of my personal favorite scenarios, the Galaxy Cars and Trucks. This is an official Salesforce certified technical architect scenario from a while back. It's the extended version, and we solved it together. And then I calculated, or I counted how many solutions are click solutions, how many are code solutions, or how many are neutral and other. And out of these about 36, 37 requirements you have, 72% are solved with clicks, with configuration, and only 20% are done with code. So you already see that in order to have any chance of passing, you have to know all the configuration stuff. You have no way just surviving by code. And as Jakob said before, this is what I want to go into next, is for almost every problem we have in Salesforce, there is 2, 3, 4 solutions. There's not one solution. You can almost everything solve with code, and almost everything can be solved some way with click or configuration. But as an architect, or especially as a CTA, you're first of all required to know both solutions. So it's not enough to know only one way of doing it, but usually you should know 2 or 3 ways. The judges will ask you about alternatives. And the second is you have to choose which one is the better. And if the configuration solution scales well, doesn't break any best practices, and fulfills the business requirement, the configuration solution should be chosen because it's cheaper to maintain and to build in the long run. And this brings me already to the first example. This is literally copied out of the requirement. A standardized process is established for account managers to receive, negotiate, and close orders. This process must be customizable by geographical region. So this is a very standard requirement we have. So I can have a code answer, which is I have a trigger framework, which makes it easy to implement distinct logic based on a region field on a pick list. We have seen that. Some of us have done that. You literally do at the beginning of the trigger, you do a simple if US, then do that handler. Or the click answer, which is our recommendation here, is you use record types to clearly indicate each customer by region on each record. And then you create region-specific pick lists, page layouts, and logic based on these record types. This sounds very trivial, but choosing the code answer would, yes, technically fulfill the requirement. And I have seen it in many times that developers tend to this code answer. Because yes, I can write a Lightning Web Component which displays only the fields I need for a certain country. And I can create a custom metadata which displays a pick list based on the country pick list. And this is all very much possible, but it's way more expensive, and it scales well, and it limits your functionality in the future compared to the click answer. So here, be aware of both possibilities, but be also able to choose the click answer. And the second is the same. It's not the same. It's also here. The click answer is correct. So the requirement correct is my personal recommendation. Let's go. Send the assessment is a record to management for approval. This assessment should automatically include the account status. So the code answer again here, we create a button which sends an email to the manager. The email contains a link to an approval Lightning Web Component page where the management can approve or disapprove the assessment. Every developer will tell me, oh, it takes me maybe a day or two to program that. Perfect, amazing. Yes, this is true, but we can also implement a standard approval process for the assessment record, which includes a formula field on the assessment record to display the account status. This is again here the recommended solution. Why? Because it's very flexible, it comes out of the box functionality, it's easy to implement, you don't have to deploy nothing, no test classes, and every admin or business users can easily adopt it. Both solutions technically work, but only the second solution will give you the full points in the CTO review board. And from my personal experience, the second solution should be chosen in a project. So again here, be aware of the multiple solutions. But for the third example, we have a backend integration, and this time it's other way around. So visualize 3 values indicating the financial health of the distributor, which are stored in the accounting application, which is an external system. The code answer, this time our recommendation, you create a Lightning Web component on the account page via an Apex callout, via remote process invocation, request and reply pattern to the accounting system, and get the 3 values as a response and display them on the account page. Or the click answer. So you would think this you need to do code. No, you can also you create a flow which makes a call out to the accounting application via an external service to get the current financial health of the distributor and displays them in a text element. So both would suffice the technical requirement, as the business requirement. Both are possible, both work, scale well, have no issues. But here, in order to have the best possible user experience, we go with the code answer. And this is now, I want to go over to Jakob again. So what can I do if I am a developer today, Jakob, to actually get up to speed with the admin stuff?
Yeah, and your examples memorized me like my real review board, because I had one requirement, of course, due to the NDA, I cannot say what exactly, but I had exactly the situation that I suggested to write Apex trigger to, let's say, do something. And they asked me, is there any declarative solution how to do this? And it brings me a bell because there is one feature which theoretically can solve this requirement. So I just use the word of the name of this declarative feature. But immediately the judge started grilling me and asking, okay, but how this feature is going to solve this requirement? How we are going to configure it? And so on and so on. And after, I think I wasted 2 or 3 minutes on this, and I had to admit that I had no idea how exactly to set this feature. So my final answer was that I'm going to say with my Apex solution, because I know that in that way I'm going to at least have a working solution at the end. And I asked them to go to the next question. But as part of my final, let's say, summary of the review board, they point that it was the mistake, and generally I have go back and review this particular feature. So having suboptimal solution 1 or 2 times, it's okay because you do not have to be perfect, but definitely you have not only be able to find the optimal solution, but explain why it's optimal and how to set it. So yeah, it's important part. And how it's happened finally that with this whole developer background and no admin experience, I was able to prepare for my review board. First of all, if you have exactly the same situation, you should try to start looking for opportunities to use declarative features in your daily job. So even if the idea is that your company is preferring writing stuff in Apex, for your own training purpose, think, okay, but if I will have to use Flow or Process Builder or maybe, I don't know, case escalation rule, how is it going to happen? And for your own training purpose, you can even implement it in 2 ways. Second, and the most important part, find somebody with admin experience as a study partner. And definitely it's a critical thing, because if you are only a developer and you are going to study with other developers, you are going to miss how many things you don't really know or don't really understand. So having this cross skills study group or study partner is, I think, the most critical part. And luckily, you can do lots of admin-related stuff on the trailhead. You can do some kind of the project super budgets or whatever, and all this admin knowledge is generally very nicely covered as part of the trailhead, so you can just focus on it. And you can even consider to volunteer as an admin for a non-profit project. There are many NGOs looking for admins, so if you can find one of them and offer that you will help them with declarative features only, do not mention that you are a master of Apex, and you will be surprised how many things you can build on your own. And before you go for the CTA review board, as you know, there are some certificates which are mandatory to have. But in our opinion, generally, of course, app builders and dev one are out of the discussion as well of the admin because they are mandatory. But Sales Cloud Consultant and Service Cloud Consultant, I have a feeling that it should be as well mandatory. Like, you know, my main area of expertise are building stuff for the App Exchange. And since last 5 years, I'm building only custom stuff on the App Exchange. But I cannot imagine that I will pass this exam without going deeply into knowledge about Sales Cloud and Service Cloud. So generally, you do not have to maybe pass the certificate, but you should be able to pass them definitely. And the same for the advanced admin. Some parts related to, I don't know, multi-currency or other parts of this exam is just the declarative word which you have to master before you will be able to go for the CTA. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
Or want?
No, that's it. Yeah. So coming back to the certifications, because it's something which I also have strong feelings about. If people tell me certificates have no value, which is only true if you don't give them value. Take them really seriously. Try to pass with 90 or 100% correct. Don't try to pass by using dumps. Try to really understand it. But because at the end, if you want to go for CTA, or even if you want to become a technical leader or an architect, you have to know Sales Cloud and Service Cloud anyways. So you cannot bypass this effort. So take it seriously, do your time. And after all, if you get Sales and Service Cloud, it will even help you for your next job, for your next promotion, for your next project. So thank you very much. This already concludes our presentation. It's rather short this time. I think hopefully we got away our point that admin knowledge matters for the CTA. And